In 3 words. The best stories.
What are stories of the best things going on right now?
The best stories
are authentic.
They are relevant.
thought-provoking.
Emotional is probably the first
The best
one for me.
stories are humorous,
Shareable.
They
I think
are
emotional.
entertaining.
They're unique.
I would
And
say
relevant.
inspiring,
Honest.
real stories that are
Colorful,
for today.
and
And
just
they're
funny.
emotional.
Those are some of the best stories.
Hello, storytellers. Fall is here. The leaves are changing, and so is how we tell stories in this truly ever-evolving landscape. We are back at it again for our October edition of Storyteller here at Tagboard. And for those of you who are new to our show, we are a monthly live stream that is produced by Tagboard, but really most importantly, we're powered by all of you watching. We have a big-time storyteller joining us today, but first, a quick intro. I'm Kristen Rogers. I'm on the success team here at Tagboard, and if you're ever looking to reach out or send maybe a good gift my way, you can get me on Twitter at Kristen E. Rogers.
And I'm Michelle Ledka-Furbush, also on the success team here at Storyteller, or I should say at Tagboard, with our podcast Storyteller, a co-host alongside Kristen. So fun to be here today. And the goal of today is really to educate, entertain, and engage with all of you. So that final part is very important because that is where you come into play. So tweet us using the hashtag Storyteller and tell us where you're watching from. Give us your favorite moments and keep that phone handy because we have everybody's favorite Tagboard trivia coming up a little bit later.
Truly is my favorite moment of the broadcast, except for, of course, our interview. Let's get right to it, Michelle. Today's storyteller is an absolute trailblazer in the broadcast and production industry. She is an award-winning television producer and showrunner behind some of the most talked about award shows, musical specials, reality competition series, and truly groundbreaking live events on TV.
We got to see her shine live and in person just a few weeks ago in New York City for Global Citizen Live's 24-hour music festival. So we are so thrilled to welcome onto the podcast, Jane Mun. Hi, Jane.
Hi, you guys. I'm like, who are they talking about? Like, wait a second. That's a pretty stellar introduction. I'm not used to this.
All you.
Oh, Jane, don't sell yourself short. You're so incredible. Such an amazing journey through broadcasting. We're so excited to talk to you about all of it. And Jane, we like to welcome our guests with a little fun fill in the blank question. So in your opinion, the best stories are blank, blank, and blank.
Ooh, I think in my opinion, the best stories are truly unplanned and unexpected. I found that through working years in live event shows that you could plan all you want, but it's those moments that are unplanned that become the most unexpected and they become the most talked about. So I love it, and that's why I've worked on some like really fun shows that are like movie awards, the VMAs, which the tagline for that show was like, expect the unexpected. And then of course, like my other live shows were People's Choice Awards, which is, 2-hour live shows, and even the Primetime Emmys, which was pretty fun. Most of the time we set the stage and then you sort of just let go of the format and you allow the liveness and the unexpected moments to come out. And that's what people talk about the most. Not perfection, but the imperfection I find very, very interesting in the best stories.
Jane, I absolutely love that because, usually it's the stories that you plan for are never the ones that turn out the way that you want them to. But when you're able to just embrace that moment, again, as you said, of the liveness of an event, I think that's truly when you get some of the coolest stories. So you said unexpected and unplanned. Is there maybe a story from a production that you've worked on that truly encapsulated kind of those moments of embracing the chaos that came your way and turning that into a great story?
Well, I cut my teeth working on a pretty fun show called the MTV Movie Awards. And this was sort of back in the day where the award shows were actually a place for people to come together and celebrate. But it was really, even though we were giving out awards, it was a variety show. And it's times like when the host, starts doing their monologue. In the case, I think, we had one year we had Sarah Silverman. It was our first year. We were going live. We had Sarah Silverman doing a monologue, and we just got Paris Hilton back from jail, and she literally came to our show from serving. It was crazy, and boy, like Sarah, just again, we didn't see the script. She sometimes the host holds scripts so that they don't get scrutinized or they don't get killed by the network, and so she had this amazing line about like Paris Hilton and using her teeth in a bar, like jail cell. It was very, very provocative. And the look on Paris Hilton's face and the look on everybody else's face, and that wasn't planned on our part as producers, but when you have amazing off the cuff comedians who really, really want to play and they don't give a hoot, right? They're just like, we're going to go for it. We're going to let it out. It's live. We can't edit it. So we go for it. And so stuff like that, like, you know, of course, at that time, like the network's like, what the hell? I didn't know about this. And I'm like, neither did I. And we both look at each other. We're like, how amazing. Because the next day, people are talking about moments that are just, again, unexpected. And she had balls. Like, talk about a woman who had balls. And that goes for just every sort of host that comes along. And they're fearless and they don't give a fuck about what happens. They just want to go for it. And that's when you have no safety net in a live show. And that's one of the reasons why I love doing live, because you just show all your cards, right? And then the cards just fall. And then you have to stack it back up and you're like, what do I have? A king or an ace or a joker? And you just deal with it, right?
I love that.
I think that is such a fun way to look at television, especially live television. And I mean, as our viewers or listeners right now can hear, I mean, Jane has you've worked on some of the biggest productions worldwide. I'm curious, was this always your goal to kind of reach this point in your career? And if so, what kind of ebbs and flows and shape did your career take leading you to this point?
Boy. Listen, I'm a first generation immigrant. I'm not even a first generation, actually. I was born in Korea. So they call me a 0.5 generation where, because first you have to be born in this country to be first. So I'm like what they call fresh off the boat, a 0.5, which is like funny, right? Like how are you a 0.5 generation? But what I had the fortunate experience is I got to really understand two cultures. And when I came to this country, you know, not speaking single English and being dyslexic, like it was like, what the hell? Like it was really hard to immerse myself in a new culture and learning the language and everything else. But that was also a gift because I was always a fish out of water. And in production, that actually helps because every show that I walk into, I'm always fish out of water because that's the exciting thing about production, I find, is that you never know what you're going to get. Like, for instance, we just worked on The Global Citizen Live. When I was brought on in early March, they said, hey, you know, we have this idea. We want to do this big show, but we think it's 12 hours. You're like, okay, 12 hours. And as I was doing the format with all the festivals that are happening, and it was at that time, it was only in Paris and New York. There was no other cities that we were planning to do. And all of a sudden it grew to 20 cities, 12 countries, 7 continents. If I knew back then in March when I was planning the show that it would evolve like that, and that's production. You just never know, right? And if you're looking for finite answers, production isn't the right for you, or live production isn't a good place for you. I was supposed to go to law school, like the three as an immigrant child. Like there were only 3 career options for me, and it was like being a doctor, a lawyer, engineer. Going to college was never even a question. You're going to college because education was everything to my parents. But I wandered and I dabbled on a few different career paths, and then somehow landed in corporate communications for MTV Networks. And I thought that was so cool to work for a company that's MTV. And as you know, I've literally produced their shows for like 20 years. So, and that was like, then from corporate communication, I was somehow really lured into production because I produced this presentation tape, for the executive board of MTV. And the head of production and on-air marketing was like, what the fuck are you doing in press or corporate communication? You should be in production. And that was like, like this eye-opening. I'm like, I never thought I would be a producer. I never thought like, I was just always just trying different things and going like, well, what can I be good at? Like, can I be a good publicist? So I was like, fantastic. Let me just try to write. Let me try to pitch. Let me try to run events. And I really actually loved it. But then I also realized like there was a limit to where I could go as a publicist. I'm like, well, corporate publicist, personal publicist. And I'm like, I'm really not really creating things. And I kind of wanted to just create. And so in this presentation tape, and it was like my boss was like, hey, you want to do this? I'm like, sure. Like, why not? So I stayed up all night for like 2 weeks and produced this tape. And I like fell in love with it. I'm like, what? I get to pick out cool music. I get to then like shoot all these things and then put it on. And then people get to look at it and they get to comment on it. And I was like, is that what being a content creator is about? And I'm like, I'm in. And so that's when I just made my leap. And every show, I was just sort of this voracious learner because I started in production much later because I had these various careers of just trying to figure shit out. And then when I got to production, I'm like, I think this is what I'm really meant to do. This is what I really want to do. And I still to this day, after 20 some odd years, I'm like, feel like a kid still trying to prove myself. And I don't know who I'm trying to prove, maybe to myself that I'm still good. I don't know, but it's like this crazy, like this drive that just keeps me going where I just have to go all in. Like I can't work half-ass. When people hire me, they get me. When people like, I can't like, oh yeah, I'll just kind of, check in and like, I can't do that. Like, it's not in my fabric. Like, I don't know how to do things like dial it down. It's like either I'm off, like I don't care about you and I'm off the project and I'm done, or I'm on and it's like that craziness, So I always felt like I was a early and a late bloomer, like early in that I feel like I had a lot of emotional knowledge. Like I knew in Korean, we have this thing called nunchi. I don't know if you guys ever heard nunchi. It's like, it's beyond common sense. It's almost like this emotional, intuitive intelligence. I always felt like I had nunchi. I had emotional intelligence. What I didn't have is professional knowledge to be where I am now. And I was like a late bloomer. Like I was just trying to figure shit out because my parents were like, why don't you go to law school? Like you took the LSAT. I was horrible tester. I had like a straight A average, like all throughout high school and college, but I was a horrible tester. So anytime that I would take these tests, I would just bomb. And I'm like, I don't know how to get past this LSAT shit. So, I knew early on that I just wasn't cut out for law school. Like I just didn't want to do it. And so, so that's like, I got, I was, whatever assignment that in production, you guys know, because you guys, as a Tagboard and as a client, like you walk into a sports show or a entertainment show, a tabloid show. In this case, like this music festival to change the world show called Global Citizen Live. Like it's and that, I love that. I love being able to every project become the expert that I can be, and learn, and I get paid to learn. Like that is the best thing about our jobs, right? Because you walk away after every project, you're like, I didn't know that. Like, oh my God, like, holy shit. Like everything becomes like this amazing enlightenment of information and knowledge that we get to then carry and pass to our next project. So that's why I love freelance. Like I've been asked to go corporate. I was like, I can't go back. Once you've been given that sort of freedom to create, and also the freedom to choose the projects that you want, right? Nobody's telling me, Jane, you have to take this project. Not my agent, not my manager, not my husband. I get to dictate what I feel good about. And lately, like I've been doing a lot of mentoring with a lot of sort of younger, the new generation. And I came up with my 3 Ps, and I was like, you guys met Pete Theobilda. He was asking me for advice. It's like, Jane, I got offered this gig, and I'm just on the fence about it. And I'm like, Pete, I said, does it fulfill your 3 Ps? And he was like, the 3 Ps. I said, yeah, the 3 Ps. And that's passion, purpose, and promotion. Number 1, passion. Does it make your heart sing? Is it something that you feel passionate about? Like, would you go out on a limb for this because you feel like in your blood that this is something that you want to do? And then there's purpose. Like, is it going to serve the greater good? Is it just fulfilling your ego, or does it have a purpose that is going to better the world? And then promotion, of course. It's like, is it going to are you going to be able to pay your rent or your mortgage, or send your kids to school, or get some dog bones for your dog, or new dog bed? Like, does that have that? So the 3 Ps are always, and if in my mind, if the 2, a project has to fulfill 2 out of the 3 Ps, right? It could be passion and promotion, great. It could be purpose and passion and not a promotion. That's okay too, or vice versa. But it has to have at least 2 of the 3 buckets. And if it doesn't, then I don't take the job anymore. Like, I just go.
Jane, I love those 3 Ps. I'm writing them down. I'm going to use them in my daily life for every project that I encounter. I mean, I love it. And, I want to go back to something you said earlier, which was, you outlined some of the challenges that you've had to go through, to blaze trails for everyone else coming up in this industry. But I love that you said that you embraced those challenges and they've made you who you are. I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit more to that, about maybe how the challenges you faced have made you stronger, or have seen you grow within the industry.
Thank you for asking, because I think that's such a great question. I think we as women, right? Like 20 years ago, there wasn't that many women like us in our positions, right? We weren't creators. If there was, they were very far and few. So when I was growing up, like, there wasn't people like me that I could look to and say, oh my gosh, like, I want to be just like her. I had no idea. Like, my role models were so different. Like, we all had our pop idols and our favorite TV stars, but then there was very few that, like, oh my God, it was like Connie Chung. And I'm like, I'm not that smart. I can't be a journalist. There was like one Asian woman in TV that I could relate to. That was Connie Chung, right? And that's like, how sad is that? But as I realized, like, I was always fish out of water anyway. I was always sort of the odd man out. I was always the girl who was this girl. And I used to hide. I think when you're younger, you focus on what you're not versus focusing on what you have. And I think as soon as I embraced my uniqueness and my diverse background, my outlook, that's when I feel like I really excelled. For instance, when I started to take over a lot of these award shows that were being produced by male producers, specifically male white producers, I decided that, like, it was weird, because who watches award shows? Women. We watch award shows, but it was produced with a different filter. So when I started producing award shows, I was like, I'm going to change how everything is done. And that is, I started pushing for more female hosts, because typically you always saw only male hosts. So I started pushing for female hosts. I started to really embrace the femininity, because I noticed that all the stages were like angular and square. And I'm like, there's something beautiful about the roundness of we. And so I started really just embracing the circle and the softness and the edges, and not being afraid of that, right? So just, and even like hiring female writers and hiring more women, because I'm like, we're the audience. Like, why wouldn't we hire? Why wouldn't we? But there wasn't that many, so you have to like you have to find us. But now it's now what's great is that you can search less. Like there's more women of color. There's just more women out there that are experienced, that are so capable, and that are now paving and trailblazing and doing everything and being sort of fearless about it. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And so it's funny because I try to really mentor, but it's exhausting to mentor because you're like, it's hard to be in production and also mentor. But when I do, I always say, listen, like, the best advice that anybody's ever given me was like, actually, it was Mark Burnett. Like everybody needs a rabbi. We all need a rabbi. We all need someone who believes in us and be like, you are special, I believe in you and I'm going to take a chance on you. And I feel like I was really blessed to have Mark Burnett in my life, he gave me my first showrunner job on a word show. He gave me my first showrunner job on a reality competition show when I had no business being a showrunner of a series. He was like, no, you know what? Those are transferable. Let's change. And this is when it wasn't in vogue to hire a woman. It wasn't in vogue to hire a woman of color to showrun your show. This was like 15 years ago. And he was like, come on, it's like, I like you Koreans. He's like, you guys are hard workers. Like he was like, he loved, like for some reason, like I think there was a Survivor, but what was his name? Yule, like a Survivor winner, one year. And he really got, and this is a Harvard graduate, I forgot his name, but he was like a Harvard graduate and he ended up winning Survivor. And through him, Mark really understood about Korean culture and about like, so it was at that same time that I came into Mark's life as a producer. And he was like, you guys are pretty smart, huh? I'm like, yeah. Like, I was like trying buying into like the, I'm like, yeah, stereotype me like that guy. I'm really smart. I'm really like hardworking. So it was really awesome. He was just like, I got to know him and he became like, to this day, he supported me. He was actually, he consulted on Global Citizen Live and he was like, Jane, do you need anything? Can I bring you coffee? He was so sweet and just again, a great ally and a great mentor. And everybody needs a rabbi. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, you're certainly an inspiration, Jane. I mean, both Kristen and I, when working on Global Citizen, we were just so blown away by you. And it was just so amazing to see you in action and see a woman of your character just in this role. And you did such an incredible job. And you really are, you're touching lives and paving the way for so many other women in this field. So thank you, first of all, for all that you are doing for all of us in this field. Second part, kind of moving on here, over your evolution in television, in production, in broadcast, how have you seen the medium change, especially with the addition of social media? And how important do you think it is for broadcast and production to find ways to adapt?
That's a great question because now I always say this, now with a cell phone, my husband's in there, we are all content creators. Like it's incredible, right? A 4-year-old is a content creator. It doesn't matter. It's so democratic in the way that we could share and also voice our opinions and create content. Like you could be this really shy girl from Akron, Ohio in her basement and still be able to create content and share it to the world and be a social influencer. Like you have the power. I also think that because we also have the power, we have to use it for good. And there's always there's a pros and cons to everything, right? And that is, there's just too many plethora. Like content is just, we used to say content is king, but now it's like content is too massive. It's so much. I mean, you guys know, even just the streaming, where it's paralysis by like over analysis, where you're watching previews for 30 minutes and you're like, like, I don't know what to watch. How many times have you been on Netflix and you go to HBO Max and you go
That's
to
me
Disney
every
Plus
Friday
and you
night.
go,
I get it.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. And then you end up paying for a movie because you're like, I can't deal. Right? And so that's, I think there's,
Uh-huh.
seriously, you pay for a movie and you're like, wait a second, I pay like $100 for all these streaming services and now I'm paying $19.99 to own a movie that I'm only going to watch once.
Mm-hmm.
But it's crazy. So I find that, and how many times are we on Instagram Live watching babies and or Frenchies, right? Dogs like yawning or whatever. Like there's so much. And I do believe that as a content creator, as a professional, not just a consumer, because I am a consumer and also a professional, is that it's so important to integrate social media into our show, because the truth is, if you don't integrate it, what you're doing is you're alienating the people that are watching, because who watches on one device? Like we all have, right? We're doing this anyway, so why not have them engage in a multi-level, multi-platform? And I remember like when I used to work at MTV, it was always like, yes, we need to have them be watching TV and also in their computers. But like, who uses computers now, right? When you literally have a computer that you could walk around with and have control over, and is more useful sometimes. But I still prefer to actually type on my computer and look at a big screen, because I'm blind as a bat now, as you age. But social media, I mean, I think, and with Global Citizen Live, that was really interesting because we, as you know, I had to present a lot of creative ideas on how to make this global event unified. And one of the challenges that our CEO, Hugh Evan, posed was, what is the tech 3.0 that we want to integrate? And I think we all at the same time, it was kismet, because we all at the same time found Tagboard. And for me, I found Tagboard because I actually worked on a Facebook show, 2020 graduation. And it was incredible because we were a posted show that we had elements that were live through Tagboard. And I found it so incredible because I was like, hey, what are people talking about Miley's performance right now? Because she did The Climb. And so I would toss to our producers and I say, hey, I want to hear the feedback of what her performance is. And then immediately we were catching all these great feedback about Miley's performance and her song being like the ultimate graduation song. Who would have thought Miley's Climb was like the #1 graduation song of all time?
I mean,
and right,
love
right?
Miley.
And yes, and she did it in her living room, and she put up balloons, and she had this podium, and she created this really special performance during a really amazing, awful time, and that we now know as the pandemic. But it was really hard because how many kids did not get to have a true graduation? And so Facebook said, you know what, we want to celebrate and have a virtual graduation. What we're going to do is this big stunt and announce, scroll every high school and every college that's graduating in 2020 and have teachers and families and everybody sort of shout out and do a roll call. And it was this incredible moment. And we had performances from Miley, and we had host Mindy Kaling and BJ Novak hosted. We had Oprah as the commencement speaker. So it was really, really profound. And the fact that Facebook, what's crazy is that Facebook as a social networking, right, social platform, wanted Tagboard to be on Facebook, which I thought was really, really awesome, right? Because it was not just a true terrestrial broadcast. It was actually a social platform that wanted have more social engagement and utilizing Tagboard. And I thought that was amazing. It was Facebook who wanted to integrate Tagboard, and that was my first introduction. I thought that was so awesome. And so when year and a half later, when we were given the challenge, we were like, hell yeah, we should definitely talk to Tagboard about how they could. Because the truth is, Global Citizen, as you guys know, it's all about citizens taking action and helping change the world and influence world leaders and philanthropists, as well as corporate companies to allocate any funds towards the climate issue, towards poverty, towards vaccine equity. And it was like this really an important overarching goal. And we wanted to know what they thought and what they were going to pledge, what they were going to do, because we weren't asking people for $10. We weren't asking like, hey, donate $10 to save a starving children. It's like, no, your currency is not your money. Your currency is your voice, which I thought was really powerful. And the Tagboard currency is also the social voice of the community, right? And it's awesome to be able to then aggregate that voice and share it and share the sentiment, which I thought Tagboard was so perfect for Global Citizen Live. It was like a no-brainer for us.
Well, we love to hear that.
Absolutely.
And not only that, you guys were like, yeah, we'll fly over and we'll give you 20, 50 ideas, whatever. We're going to pivot. And that's what we need. We need partners who understand that in a live show, things change. And if we can't be fluid, if we can't pivot, if we can't evolve, and things were changing literally. If you think about it, like a week before, Fugees were coming and reuniting for the first time in 15 years. And that was happening. All of a sudden, India was like, we want to do an hour, 90-minute show. Like, let's do it. Rio was like, we want in Global Citizen and we want to come. So like literally the show was just blowing up in the last 2 weeks. Like you guys just came in and was just so like great partners. And that's what happens when you have great live producers that understand nothing's finite, that we have to be uncomfortable, right? We have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's production. That's live production. Like if you want definitive answers, production is not for you. Because you never know what you walk into that morning and how many things have changed. And the curveballs that come your way, because it's funny, like if I knew what I was producing back in March and what I produced now, just, you're like, what? It's crazy. Because I was looking at, like, we were doing some stats. So we were in 12 countries, by the way, 15 plus cities, over 70 plus artists. I had 507 items in the rundown, including Tagboard items that we were breaking in, as we were saying. Wow. My team produced 114 packages that we ended up servicing around the world. We had 44 edit rooms. And then I had 24 different world production partners that we were managing. So 24-hour live content. And then I had to also oversee a 4-hour FX show and a 1-hour ABC show that happened literally that night on Sunday. So this was probably the most
incredible
content that I've ever created and managed. I think I'm still like dizzy. I think I'm still like,
I get it.
Hearing those numbers, I'm getting like flashbacks. You were there. But moral of the story, you got to be flexible. You got to be flexible. You got to be adjustable. And that's what's the fun about it too.
It really is. And, Jane, I want to go back to the directive with Global Citizen Live, because it was such an interesting use case where we were using social media. And to your point of Tagboard's currency is really elevating voices of everyone else. And that's what we were looking for here. It wasn't about the number of retweets. It was about starting and sparking meaningful conversation. Again, would just love your thoughts on the Tagboard integration side of things, but really just using social media itself as a way to start meaningful conversation in a broadcast and creating that second screen experience that isn't just about retweeting something. It's about starting something for change.
Like it wasn't, because it's happening anyway. Like conversations are happening, but why not have that conversation integrated with us, right? And have it be focused on the product, or the content or the show or the event? Like, why not? And that's the question. Like, why wouldn't you? It's happening. It's happening everywhere. But now you're like, shh, come in. Everybody's having parties, and you're like, hey, come to our party. This is a big tent, and we could come together and now we could be in the same roof and we could have conversation. We don't always have to agree, right? We could matter of fact, we love when people disagree, because that sparks more and generates more conversation. So
Exactly.
for me, it was a no-brainer. And I love the fact that you guys, Tagboard was able to not just focus on domestic, because this is sort of the first show that I've done, that was so multi-language and multi-culture, and to see the reach that we could get by even just like seeing the heat map. I love the heat map. That was kind of cool to see like the activities and the conversations that were happening around the world. Heat map is awesome.
Yes.
I also thought it's just like when we're in Rio, being able to like literally seeing like the Rio Brazil map just heat up, and then when we're in India, being able to, in Lagos, Nigeria, being able to really focus on that, and that was kind of cool. And I remember I'm like, guys, we have to be super live and active during this time, because I know that Brazilians and the Latin Americans are going to be really active here. And then you guys were like, yes, we're in. And then same thing with India, that region. And same thing with when we're talking about Lagos, Nigeria, right? So I thought that was kind of really super cool, not just to focus on the domestic, because it's so easy for us to be like, yes, US centric or European, because we were in Paris and London, but really to see the map of the world in that true fashion. I thought that was awesome. Like, I really love that. And and again, like my first true international experience working with all these different countries and being able to have access and tap into that, I thought was really, really special.
It was fun for us too.
Absolutely. I was going to say, I think that's one of the coolest things about social media, that we forget that it can connect us literally worldwide. And that was so fun of how, Jane, you chose to use Tagboard and social media in your production there. And it was just so fun to see. And we have got a lot more of our conversation with Jane coming up here. We've got more things we need to ask her about. But for right now, all of our listeners, viewers out there, you need to grab your phone and get ready to scan the QR code you see on your screen, because it is time for Tagboard Trivia Global Citizen Live Edition.
Welcome back to Storyteller with our special guest this episode, award-winning television producer Jane Mun. Jane, love our conversation. We still have a few more questions to get to. Now, here's where we like to hit you with a few fun segments to wrap up the show. Up first, they said, what? I mean, you have worked with some of the biggest stars in television music beyond. You talked about Sarah Silverman at the top of the show. Can you share with us maybe a moment or interaction from one of your favorite productions where it made you say, they said, what?
I think there's too many of those. I mean, I worked with Kevin Hart, who is hysterical, and what's so great about him is that I met him when he was really just starting up as a host. He did this show called Celebrity Rap Superstar on MTV. I don't know if you guys remember. And he also hosted the MTV Movie Awards.
Yes.
With Dwayne Johnson. And then I got to work with him on TKO, which was a CBS obstacle course show. And so he's always the things that he says. And I love that he leans into, still to this day, he leans into his height. Like that is sort of his go-to still. And
Yes.
we always joke about that. And I love him. And he's really fun. But, more so than my celebrity days, like 20 years ago, I adopted a dog, and I'm obsessed with pit bulls, and I'm obsessed with Cesar Milan. So I know, like just obsessed. And so when we talked about the 3 Ps of passion and purpose, last year I got to produce my first real series with him called Cesar Milan, Better Human, Better Dog. And that it's so interesting. Like, I met the Michelle Obamas, I met the Will Smith, and I met like Tom Cruise, been to his house, had breakfast, but there's all these like slew of celebrities that I respect and I admire, but for some reason, like Cesar fucking Milan just has my heart. And to work with the legendary dog whisperer was like everything to me. And what's so crazy is that I lost my dog in the middle of filming. And his name was Petey. He was like this 12-year-old pit bull stray dog. Walked into our house middle of the night with 2 other pits, and then we decided to keep him, and we had 4 dogs at that point. Now we were down to 1, and I lost him. So Cesar said, "Hey, I have a dog for you." His name is Bear, and he's also a rescue. He used to live in Malibu, so I won't tell you guys who his dog was, but it was a celebrity household. And he said, when you're ready, you can have Bear. And so that's I love, that's my biggest, and he's the real deal. And we talk about being immigrants, because he's a Mexican immigrant at the age of 18, and he came and crawled into, he came to this country. And so we always just sort of commiserate on our immigrant days, and how this generation doesn't know how hard we had it, like it's that, it's that funny story that we share. But that's why I love my job. Like one minute I'm dealing with international countries and doing a 24-hour live show, and then my next show I am doing a series for Nat Geo and Disney Plus with Cesar Milan. Like, how freaking cool is that? So that's I love my job just because amazing. I get to pick and dictate and work on cool shows that touches me, that makes a difference for me. So anyway, so that's the 3 Ps. Promotion I didn't get. but I'm okay with the
special,
2, right?
Though.
Yeah. So I got the gift.
And think of all the amazing people.
Yes.
That's the best gift of all. And just to think about how many amazing people you've gotten to meet over the course of your career. And that brings us to our final segment here, which is our storyteller shout out. And so we are going to ask you to shout out to a storyteller who you think should come on our show and share their story. So what we need you to do is just look into the camera and repeat after me.
Oh.
Hi, I'm Jane Mun. I just got telling my story, and I nominate blank to step onto the storyteller stage and share theirs.
My name is Jane Mun, and I nominate Beverly Bond of Black Girls Rock to be on Storytellers. Beverly Bond, you guys will love her. Talk about trailblazer. She is a DJ turned model turned producer, and she created a movement called Black Girls Rock.
I love that.
And When we talk about a trailblazer, when we talk about a woman who stands what she believes and actually does what we should all do, and that is stand for what you believe in and don't ever compromise. And that's sort of the foundation of Black Girls Rock. And I had the fortunate privilege of producing 4 years her Black Girls Rock award show for BET. And then I ended up winning a NAACP Image Award from that. And I'm always grateful. And she's
Oh my gosh.
a great role model, a sister from another mother. And I think she'd be a great, I think she'll be a great storyteller. She has a lot of stories to tell, especially about women in media and also women of color in media, and how we portray, right? That the whole idea of Black Girls Rock movement was that all Black women were portrayed in such negative light. And if you look at music videos, they were just always very sexualized, and there was nothing that really encompassed a Black woman. And she said, we're going to stop that. We're going to start celebrating women that are great role models, and why. And so, and I just love that, because I think when you open up a door for one, let's say, Black women, it opens up the door for all other women of color and all other women, period. And so I always say that Black Girls Rock show was never just for women, for girls who are Black girls, even though they loved it. And of all the shows that I've ever done, I would walk into a producer's office or an agent, and they would say, the assistant, by the way, would be like, Jane, I watched Black Girls Rock and I love it. You are amazing. Like, that show has created more passion and purpose for me than a lot of the other, I'm going to call it, other award shows and other shows. And I still get calls and or like recognized for producing Black Girls Rock. And look at me.
Love that.
I love that. That's amazing, Jane. She sounds incredible, and congratulations for all the work you did on that. I could talk to you for hours about everything that you've accomplished and done and been a part of, and just thank you so much for taking the time to join us and share your story and all the insight, and thank you for everything you've done for women in your field as well.